It is so good to be back here for our monthly Q&A. And I missed you all so much. My son is, in fact, the cutest child that ever lived in the history of the world, but I missed you all so much, and I'm just super, super stoked to be back. I'm doing the newsletter, doing the monthly Q&A, doing the roundtable, so keep your eyes out for announcements about the next roundtable on October 6th. So this month's question is a very interesting one that I've gotten a couple of times. It's, what's the ideal amount to raise for a first-time fund? And this is one of those questions that sounds deceptively easy. You could say that this should be pretty clear. Venture, sure, raise $10 million for your first fund. Private equity, raise $100 million for your first fund. But nothing is never that cut and dry. I think there are three things that you should probably keep in mind as you determine what's going to be the right fund size for your first fund. The first one is your strategy. I think this is probably the most obvious point. How expensive is the industry that you're investing in? Of course, and certain industries are way more capital intensive than others. If you're investing in, say, aerospace and defense, that's going to be way more capital intensive than SaaS platforms and venture capital, just to give a really, really broad and kind of obvious example there. So that's the first thing to keep in mind. The second is capacity. So depending on your strategy, do you actually have the team you need to deploy any amount of capital? So if you're taking board seats, for example, do you have enough bottoms to put in those seats? If you're doing more passive minority investing, that's actually going to be a kind of a different story, obviously. Ultimately, you also want to think about the level of reporting that you're going to have to do to LPs. So for certain venture strategies, the sort of spray and pray can be a little bit intense in terms of having to keep track of a number of different companies, whereas on the LBO side, being a bit more intensive and being more in the ground on the ground with the company is going to be more time intensive. So you're going to want to make sure that you have the team to facilitate that. The last thing is management fees. I think this might want to be one of the last things you'll want to think about, obviously, but it matters. Can you run a company, your investment firm, and can you live based off of the 2.5% that you're getting from the size of your fund? Obviously, 2% of $100 million is significantly more than 2.5% of $10 million. And yet be realistic for your strategy. I won't insult your intelligence by telling you much more than that. And also be prepared if you do think that your strategy is going to require you to bootstrap it for a while. You know, the investment community is made up of very scrappy and very intelligent people. And I do believe that you are of the scrappy and intelligent bunch if you are listening to this question. So definitely be prepared. Think about any of the investments that you're going to make, not just in your companies, but in yourself and in the firm that you're building. Thank you very much again for joining me here on this journey, and we will see you next month.